Hey guys, it's Dr. Taylor here, and today I'm going to be showing you something fun for our Flipgrid discussion. Um, as you know, this week's topic has been about secondary data. And so in your chapter, you read about secondary data and about internal and external secondary data. And today, I wanted to expose you to some external secondary data. And I wanted to do it in a way where you could actually apply it and acquire a skill that you could actually put on your resume. So this whole exercise that we're going to be doing, and there's multiple steps even within this video, I am going to demonstrate a database called Simply Analytics. We are going to help solve a marketing research problem using the data, and then you're going to go and do it on your own and make a presentation for your Flipgrid discussion on what you learned. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you, and let's go here. So first, what we're doing is we're going to use a company. I'm sorry, we're going to use Kumon as our client. So Kumon is an educational company that does learning enrichment programs for children in K through 12. So they do reading and math enrichment that you do after school. And this is a service that you pay typically about $100 to $200 per service offering. So for the reading, and then another $100 to $200 for the math part. And the students are given exercises to do on a daily basis, and it helps accelerate their reading and their math. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that they've hired us and that they've hired us to conduct a strategy-oriented study. Okay, so strategy-oriented means that they want to test how something works. So in this case, they want to run a mailer campaign, and they want to know which zip codes to send the mailer campaign, but they also have two different campaigns, and they want to see which is more effective. So the starting part for the research study is, understanding who we're going to send the study to, how we're going to be able to test them. So we need to figure out who these people are. So I've attached a short little video. It's this video right here that you can watch to learn more about Kumon so that you can understand who the target market is. So that'll be very helpful if you watch that video. But for us, we're going to go into Simply Analytics. Now, Simply Analytics is a database that you have access to. Many larger organizations have access to this data as well, and some smaller ones. It all depends on the organization. But this is really cool data. It includes census data. It includes some consumer expenditure data, just data from all over the place, and you can pull it together to be able to capture some really cool insights. So that's what we're going to do today, and we're going to figure out how to solve this Kumon problem. So they've hired us for this to conduct this strategy-oriented study. And so they have a new early reading and math program for 4 to 6-year-olds. So they want to test that campaign to see which is more effective in turning into sales. And what we need to do as researchers is to identify which zip codes to target. And we want to do this for two reasons. One, we want to be able to figure out which zip codes to target for us so that when we do the study, we have a higher likelihood of accessing these people when we do our research. But then also when they go to do the campaign, which zip codes, when they do the mailer campaign, are they going to have the highest probability of someone actually purchasing from them? So how do you figure that all out? It's kind of overwhelming, right? Well, the cool thing is that if you understand data and you understand secondary data, is that you can actually start solving these problems relatively quickly. So let's get started and take a look at this database. So I have included in the Flipgrid discussion a tutorial and a series of tutorials on how to access Simply Analytics, because it's through our library. So there's a special process, how to sign up for it, and then a couple, and it's only, I think, a total of 6 minutes between the 3 videos or 4 videos. It'll walk you through a couple really easy fundamental things. I need you to do that first before you watch the rest of this video. So again, stop the video now, go down and check out the tutorial. It'll be the library Simply Analytics tutorial. Click on that, watch those short videos, get access to Simply Analytics. And then once you've done that, start this video over again. And then you can work with me side by side as we go through the steps that you're going to need to be able to master so that you can do your discussion, the work that needs to be done to get you the information you need to do your discussion today. All right, so I'm going to stop. Okay, now you've come back, you've done all your work. Okay, cool. So let us check this out. Okay, so logging on. You guys should probably already be logged on if you've watched the tutorials. Okay, so again, our goal is that we've been hired by Kumon, and we want to test these 2 different mailer campaigns for an early reading program for 4 to 6 year olds. So what we want to do is ultimately they want to have a mailer campaign that leads to the highest profitability, right? The largest number of people that actually call in and sign their child up for their program. So how do you do that? Well, you do that by saying, okay, I have a location, right? So I'm Kumon, I have locations across the nation. There's one here in Corpus Christi, and the Corpus Christi one will be the focus for this video. For your assignment, you'll get to choose which location across the nation you want to explore. But for this, what we're doing right now, we're going to focus on Corpus Christi. So Corpus Christi has, within a 30-mile radius of Corpus Christi, there's over over a million people that live here. And so if we're going to mail out, we can't mail to everybody, right? It's just too expensive. 2, we want to be able to mail to the right people. But how do you do that? How do we know which zip codes have the highest likelihood of us reaching our target market, which is families who have children under the age of 6? So how do we do this? Well, Simply Analytics can help us do this. And so it's really cool how this can happen. So what we need is data to make this study better. We need to know, 1, the population. We need to try to narrow that down to our target population. We need to know zip codes that have large numbers of families with children under the age of 6, right? We need them to be affluent because, like I said, it's between $100 and $200 per program. And if you do both programs, it can be between $200 and $400. So they need to be somewhat affluent, which I think it's safe to say that $100,000 in household income or higher would be able to afford this program, but probably people who make under $100,000, not that they couldn't afford it, but our target market is more on the affluent side. So we're going to stay with 100,000 up. And then we also want to know which zip codes are more likely to spend money on tutoring. So yeah, we can get that data from here, which is super cool. Okay, so how do we do that? That's the hard part, right? So let me show you. All right, so we're going to start a new project. And so we're here. We're going to do a new project. This is my location. And so for your project, you would put in whichever location you choose from Kumon. You'll go to the Kumon website. You'll look to see which locations they have. Pick one that's close to you, pick one that you're just kind of interested in learning more about. But you'll have a different location when you actually do yours. So I have Corpus Christi. All right, so you can pre-select all of these things, but I'm not going to do that because I want you to learn how to use this program. All right, so we're going to hit create project without seed variables because we have very specific variables we want, and I want to be able to teach you how to access this information. So the data you can access by category, so gender, race and ethnicity, income, poverty, or you can click the data folder and you can click on the different databases. Business counts, census, consumer expenditures, the Easy Health. All of these have different information in them. I'm going to keep this video as short as possible, so I'm not going to dive into each of those, but I do recommend that you explore it. Just kind of see what's available. Anything that's grayed out, our library does not have access to. It's actually, these databases are very expensive. So we don't have the funds to be able to have a fully stocked Simply Analytics database. But what we're going to use today is we're going to start with the census data. And what we want first is population. And so population is, we go to census, we're going to click on people and households, we're going to click on population, and we're going to click on total. Now, they give you all these different options, and you can explore those a little bit more, but I only want total population because I want to understand how many people are there in total in this area that we're looking at, and see how it pops up over here. Pops up over here, and it gives us a legend, and there's a map underneath that's being created as we do this. Okay, so we have our first variable, which is population. We want a second variable, which is another census variable. So we're going to go to census. I could have stayed there, by the way, but just to show you. Now we're at people and households. We clicked on people and households. And now we want households. And we want to click on families. And then if you scroll down, so you have all these families with no children, families, single parents, all different populations. And so we're interested in families with kids under the age of 6. So we have families with people under 6, and I want the number of families because I want to understand, like, what is the largest population that I have with kids who are under the age of 6, families with children under the age of 6. I'm also going to include percentages because I want you to see how the data changes when you go from count to percentage and why it matters. So I'm going to click that as well. For some reason, it's not letting me do both right now. Families with people. Okay, so we'll keep it there, and I will come back to the families with people under 6, the percentage of it. All right, so we have got our population, we have got our families with kids under 6, the number, and now we need income. So we're going to go down here to income, click on that. We want household income, so we click on household, and we are looking for household income 100,000 or above. You can look at each of these individual categories, but we want to lump people who make $100,000 or more into one group. So we want this one, and we actually want it in terms of percentages. So this one we want in percentages. And we just want to know how many people, because we think that a good target market is one that, a good target zip code is a zip code that has more people that make over 100,000 or over. All right. So we have population. We have the number of families with kids under the age of 6. We have income. Now we need our last variable, which is it's test. How many people? How much money do people spend on test prep and tutoring? So this consumer expenditures is super cool. You can look and find out about food, household related. Seriously, explore this. There is some really interesting data in here, and it can really help you with the other projects that you're doing and your capstones that are coming up. This, if you're in any entrepreneurship classes, this is really valuable data. But go here, and then we're interested in education. And what we want to know is how much is spent on test preparation and tutoring services, because Kumon is a tutoring service. And one of the things that's driving us to select this as an item is that areas that spend a lot of money on tutoring. So tutoring might not happen until the child is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up through 18. And while we're looking at 6 years and younger, because we want that 4 to 6 year range, what we can assume is that a population that is spending money on tutoring has created social norms that are going to flow down to other individuals who have children that are earlier in the life course. So we can take this data and make that assumption and use it as one of the overlays. Okay, so now we have our 4 main variables. And now these 4 variables, we're curious, can we figure out which zip codes are the best zip codes for us to target? So it creates these comparison tables, maps, and rankings. The comparison table is just going to show us like Corpus Christi compared to the United States. And then we can go right here and we can edit this view, and then we can, there we go, there's my percentage. All right. So we're done. Click there and see how it populates, and we can compare Corpus Christi to the United States. This works really well if you want to compare city to city. So if you have several cities. But for us, this kind of just gives us a general overview as to what we're looking at. And now we have these maps. And so right up here tells you which map. So we have the different variables that we selected. We'll start with population. And so we have our population. This is how many people are here. You can see the darker the red, the higher the level of the population. And this is done by zip codes. Oh, and so you can scroll in and get more details. Sometimes if you go in too far, the data does not become as reliable. So usually out at this level, but we can see there's several zip codes here that have a high density of population. Let me scroll it back out. Now let's go to number of families with people under the age of 6. And so again, the red indicates that these are the zip code areas that have the children under the age of 6. So again, it's pretty much, everybody has, each one of these counties has over 500, almost 500 families with kids under the age of 6, which is great. If we look at it in terms of percentage, so percentage of families, we can see that, the Island and Flower Bluff have a lower percentage of households and families that have kids under the age of 6. This area down here in the south side has a high level. This area, which I do believe is along like maybe Weber Road, I think that's Ayers and then Weber. That has a high level. We have high levels out here. If you scroll out, you can see that the Calallen area also has, over 12% of the population has children that's 6 years and younger. All right, so let's take a look at households with income. So we can see in terms of, the number of households. I don't want number of households. I want, okay, so that'll be the next one. So we're going to skip this one. We don't want the number. That's the only bad thing about Simply Analytics is that if you click something, it's hard to unclick it. I'm still relatively new to this as well, and it's kind of been frustrating. But so percent of households with income over 100,000, we can see that this area here and this area here, we have two main zip codes where 40% of their population, more than 40% of their population makes over 100,000. So that would tell us that in terms of income, like these two are really great zip codes for us to focus on. And then in terms of test preparation expenditures, we can look and see that we have households, the households in the red spend a minimum of $100 on average for test prep and tutoring services, right? So in these different zip codes. So we can definitely see that this zip code doesn't spend that much at all on test prep. So that's a zip code we're not interested in. But so now the question is, like, how do we figure out which zip code is the best? Because we have those 4 layers of data that we're dealing with. Well, one of the things we can do is kind of go and look at this ranking. And so ranking is going to provide the information to you in a tabular form. So we want number of families, percent of households, and then test prep. And then we're going to be done. And that I did all that with view actions. All right, so we have our population, and you can move these around any way you want to. I'm going to put test prep next because I think it's important, the percentage of the number of families. Actually, I'm going to put that next because the number of families, that's telling us what our target market is, right? So in that particular zip code, we have 1,396 people in zip code 78415 that are potential customers. And these people in that zip code on average spend $198.80 on test prep and tutoring per year. So we know that they can afford our product. But the question is this the best zip code? And we have all these zip codes. We have 19 zip codes right now. So how do we narrow it down to like 3 or 4 zip codes? Because they can't afford to do a mailer campaign to all 44,000 individuals and all 1 million people that are in Corpus Christi. We really need to be able to narrow it down and focus on the best zip code to focus on. So, you know, we could look and say, okay, well then let's focus on the ones that have the largest number of families. And that would be, you know, the 78415. Or we could say, well, let's focus on the one that spends the most money on test prep. And this would be 78413. Or we could say, let's go after the one that has the zip code that has the highest income. And that would be 78414. They have the largest percentage of their population has incomes over 100,000. So it's great, but we're still not where we need to be. We still have too much data and we really need to narrow it down. So let's go back up to the map and let's start talking about filtering right here, this filtering button. We want to look at these maps and we want to be able to filter things out, right? So if we go filtering and we say we want the number of families to be, I'm sorry, I'm looking for my notes real quick. All right. First, actually, I need to go and look at something. First, we need to look at the maps because I need some data before I can move forward. All right, so on this one, we need to know what is this number right here. So when it comes to test prep, so let's actually start with the number of families. So we want to focus on these hot areas, right? These super red hot areas. So we only are interested in areas that have populations that families with people under the age of 6 with populations that are more than 485. All right, so 484, we're going to use this number right here, that 485, because we're going to say more than, greater than 485 in our filter. Okay, so we have that piece of data. Now let's go to percentage of households. We're interested in the zip codes that have the highest percentage of people that earn over $100,000. We want this red hot zip code. So we want to take this number, 40.88%. 40.88%, and we want to use that and say greater than that in our filter. Okay, so we have that piece of data. And then test prep. We want our test prep to be in this red hot zone, in this super dark red hot zone. And so our piece of data that we need is 110.69. So we're going to grab that and we're going to filter it so that it's higher. So it only includes this red hot group. So what we're saying is that each one of those 3 attributes, the families with kids under 6, the income over 100,000, and the test prep and tutoring over $110.69, we only want to see those zip codes where they are high in all 3 of those. So what does it look like? Well, let's go to filtering and let's go number of families. And we are going to go greater than. Okay, and then we are going to take that number that we pulled, which is 484, that we got from the legend. And now we're going to add households with income greater. And we want this to be 40.88%. And then we want test prep, and we want it to be greater than $110.69. Okay, and then we're going to hit the apply, and I want you to watch the maps. Okay, it now has grayed out any zip code that doesn't match. So any zip code that does not match that, it's not showing. So population only shows those zip codes. Number of families, notice how it's grayed out. If you look at percentage of families, it's grayed out. It's only showing us in each of these, those 2 super red hot zip codes. Okay, so that's great, but it's really hard to figure out what the zip code is, right? And yeah, I'm not sure what I did there, but all right. So it's not showing us the zip codes, but we can go over here to ranking, and we can include that same filter that we used, and we can say families is greater than 484. We can say the households, we want it to be over 40.88%. And we want to say the test prep, we want their spending to be above 110.69. And then we're going to hit apply. And now you can do hide or strike out. So I'm going to go out of here. But see, when you strike it out, it just puts a line through it, but it's still kind of hard to see what's going on. So you can go back to filtering and you can go hide, and then it'll hide all the ones except for those 2 zip codes that we saw in the map. So These two zip codes are 78414 and 78410. And you can see that 78414, almost 50% of the households earn over 100,000. 43.14% of the households in 78414, which I do believe is McAllen, make over 100,000. We can see that their test prep spending is really high. We can see that the number of families is relatively high. And so this is our best option. So these two zip codes, 78414 and 78410, would be what we recommend to Kumon for Corpus Christi. And so then we could buy a mailing list for them. And when we did our study, we would only our population would be these two zip codes, and we would only survey people in the zip codes and only have people in these zip codes take our study. And then when they went to do the mail campaign, they would only buy mailing lists for these two zip codes. So that is how you use Simply Analytics. Follow the instructions in the Flipgrid discussion post as to what you need to do for your discussion, because you'll be running this analytics program yourself, but just for a different location for Kumon, and then sharing what you learned with the class. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.